around 2 degrees, we're getting all kinds of, wrong notes. So like the rhythm in the first part is like. The tempo was CO2, pitch was temperature, harmony, like dissonance and things like that. Volume and a kind of modulation and distortion was the solar radiation incoming and outgoing. And then ocean pH which is the acidity of the ocean. That controlled the form or sort of the integrity of the music. The logic of the piece begins to dissolve.
As a scientist, I'm used to working with pretty drastic future scenarios. So I have a different range of what I see as possible for the environment. And there are cases where the Earth doesn't look anything like what we know of now. So that's when Eric's piece gets into the very distorted aspects where you can't tell the motif is there at all. But there are other scenarios where if we have mitigation action, then we still will be able to recognize the planet, and that's where you recognize the theme in Eric's piece coming back, but it's modified in some ways.
At 2 degrees, the music is going faster, the chords are speeding up. How often they change, there's certain notes that, are the dissonant notes, we're introducing notes. Things are detuning, like there's a piano sound that's actually going out of tune.
You can still tell that it's the same piece, but it's a little bit wonky. And that would be like if we have species extinction or habitat destruction, temperatures are increasing. So the environments are definitely changing. And like even with the fires in California right now, we can still tell it's California and it's still the same mostly, but there's also these like crazy, unusual events.
It's important to remember that this is a live piece with computer tracks, but we do play this live. Scott Brazil and Tom DiMuzio are both experts at highly dissonant and noise music. Michelle Walter, who is the violinist in the piece and uses her looper, and with Bill Nortker on bass, they were invaluable to work with.
So in the next 10 years or in the next 2 degrees of warming, we will see an increase in a lot of the effects that we've already seen so far, which is increased temperatures, increased droughts, and increased heat waves, and also more extreme events when the ocean has more energy. There's more hurricanes, and also we'll see more fires.
That's at the point where we can still survive somewhat comfortably. You have to kind of think about like what's happening in our environment now with all the fires and how we find this to be so tragic, and to think that we're only at slightly over 1 degree hotter. That point still needed to be something that sounded livable. So we had to figure out our gauging the end of the piece and where this piece was, so that when we're here, it doesn't sound like an unlivable place. We will not be needing to have mass migrations yet. We will. Those are going to be really sad moments.
We're also already seeing that now. Coastal regions. And then there's really hot areas where it's just like unbearable. And so people are trying to move. And then where there's drought, people are also trying to move. So there's a lot of conflict that happens when either the land stops being productive due to soil degradation or water resources are dwindling. And then when people try to migrate to other places, then cultures clash. When I see other people feeling despair, that's what drives change. And I can stand up with my graphs and say, we need to do something, but it takes emotions to drive response. Having music help convey that and really making people sit for 30 minutes and think about the future of the world, I think will help drive action, and that's the thing that gives me hope.
5 degrees. At that point, we've really gone past the tipping point. It will seem almost like not noise, but like the drum rhythm is almost gone. And this is largely because of the ocean pH, which I used. Like if I hadn't used that, we could have sort of maintained form integrity, but I decided not to, and I think it's more representative. But the music is just almost becoming noise. It's pretty dire. It's kind of like a lot of storms are happening, things are coming and going. There is illogical things coming in and going out. The rhythm is completely dissembled. It's just a kind of a chaos.
So I believe we're currently heading towards a 5-degree warmer world by the end of the century. 5 degrees colder from now would be the last ice age, and then 5 degrees warmer than now is in 70 years. We're increasing in temperature the same amount that we had in 12,000 years in 250 years. So that's really showing you how human-caused climate change is really different than the natural cycles within the Earth. It's just so much faster.
Uh, 7 degrees that's really past the point of livability on the planet. We bring back a theme that we introduced before the industrial, or the early part of the Industrial Revolution, before any of the data began to shift. And it's this kind of beautiful orchestral theme with the violin, very sort of warm and optimistic, which is the way people were during that time of the Industrial Revolution. It felt like we were getting answers to all of our problems. That is really a powerful effect on the audience, as far as I have found with people that have afterwards and talked with them afterwards. When they hear that theme return 7 degrees later, and it's so garbled, but you can still kind of, it's trying to play. That's my favorite part of the piece. That's the part that, to me, just brings it home, because it's like, oh my God, I can hear that theme. It's so ruined.
Climate change is going to drastically change how we live, how we eat, how we get our water, how we travel to see each other. And so I don't think that there's any aspect of our life that isn't going to be changed by climate change.
You're living it. If you're getting a terrible fire that destroys your city, there's no question that it's affecting you. So I hope with the Climate Project that we are motivating people that already know that this is a problem, a big problem, and that they realize that we have to be activist about it now. That's the goal of the Climate Project, to motivate and to give them the scope of this 30-minute piece covering more than 500 years, how it sounds to them.